Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Star Rising, the Templar Awakening. Michael Henry Dunn here with my esteemed friend, Reverend Maia Chrystine Nartoomid. Hello, Maia, how are you doing?
Hello there, Michael. I'm doing great, and spring has sprung way up here in 8,000 feet. I'm so glad.
Yeah, wow, spring has sprung and the first mosquitoes are showing.
Well,
They're not too bad yet. So for all of you out there who are intrigued by everything we tell you about how wonderful Crestone is, and it's the high mystic valley with portals and sacred arcs and gorgeous mountains, this time of year, a plague of mosquitoes, giant mosquitoes that a cloud of them will descend upon you and carry you off to their nest to be devoured.
oh, it's not that bad, especially where I live. Where I live, I hardly notice them. They're just not that bad.
Right. No, some years they're bad, some years they're not. And this year it's like, okay. But anyway, that's just to keep too many people from moving here.
That's right.
We can keep it the exclusive, reclusive hideaway that it is. So welcome, everyone. And I am excited to explore what we're sharing with you this time, which is the NUMIS OM. And as I understand it, I always like to give my own attempt at a thumbnail sketch here to hopefully be validated by you before we let people see the beautiful video. So as I understand it, the NUMIS OM is what you might call a transitional phase between the old Earth, our present reality, and the experience of the new Earth, and also between the NUMIS OM. There's another transitional NUMIS OM. Once it's sort of like a transitional place between two transitional places, if you will.
Sorry.
Is that right?
Not quite.
Not quite. You know, I'm going to stop my thumbnail sketch right here.
Right. Well, it's kind of okay, but let me just, it's difficult to understand.
Yeah.
That's why the video, I try to stop and explain it a little bit, because we talk about pyramidus radius a lot, and that's a platform of this Earth. And I will explain it. I explain it more in the video, so I'm not going to get into it too much. But you know, it's a magnetic frequency that kind of floats on the surface of this Earth. But it's a consciousness that brings us together. But it is a magnetic field, a hypermagnetic field. Now, NUMIS OM is actually in World System 2, but it's the very first membrane. It's the very first line of that. It's like a membrane within a membrane. And that little narrow space, so to speak, is NUMIS OM. I'm speaking in spatial terms, which of course it isn't, but that's what it is. It's that first layer. Preparation could last thousands of years, I don't know, but that's where NUMIS OM is, to prepare us. So we have the pyramidus radius brings us up to the ascension, and then NUMIS OM on the other side of the fence, so to speak, takes us into that stage of just, you know, bathing us in the warmth of the new world system and getting us going into the whole thing.
Right. And one of the most intriguing and encouraging things that you tell us in this video is that we can actually begin to have touch points to this hypermagnetic, well, that's to this NUMIS OM. Even now here, we have 24/7 access to have just brief experiences that help us in this transformational process. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, with that, let's share it with you now. I find this to be, you know, particularly inspiring and encouraging. You give us a beautiful affirmation to practice that helps us raise our frequency and experience these touch points that are actually an important part of the transformational process in and of itself. So we will share this with you now. It's about 10 minutes long, and we'll be right back to discuss and explore. So here's the video.
Let us speak now about NUMIS OM. This is the envelope in the new Earth star, that is the first entry point between the old earth and the new earth. I read to you from my files on this. NUMIS OM as a hyperspace reality is transitionary, yet absolutely vital to the ascension of Earth's humanity. NUMIS OM acts like an osmotic membrane layer stretched between the current Earth and the new Earth star. However, with NUMIS OM, there are actually two membranes, one between NUMIS OM and the old Earth, and one between NUMIS OM and the new Earth star. Before we continue, I want to clarify some things. This is not the Pyramidus radius matrix. The Pyramidus radius matrix never leaves the old Earth, and yet it is not of the chaotic world. It's a floating experience, reality that has to do with the magnetic levels of the Earth that create this specific magnetic level, or hypermagnetic, one might call it. So that is contained within the magnetic bodies of the human beings that respond to that awareness that they are perpetuating in their own selves. But this is not about Pyramidus radius matrix, it's about NUMIS OM, so I'll get back to that topic, but I wanted to make sure you understood there is a difference between the two. To continue, in the process of osmosis, a liquid, usually water, is able to pass across a semi-permeable membrane, leaving its solute solids behind on one side. In this way, the membrane acts like a filter, and this is the basis of reverse osmosis water filters. In the semi-permeable membrane of NUMIS OM, the liquid passing through the membrane is somewhat synonymous with what is often referred to as the waters of creation. In other words, this is the etheric fluidium of the planet and all beings who have called her their home. The solute solids that will be left behind on the old Earth side of the NUMIS OM membrane are none other than the denser aspects of awareness, energy consciousness of the old Earth. These denser aspects might be referred to as pollutants, but that would not be entirely correct. On the one hand, they have helped to develop the current Earth reality to what it is now from its primal roots in order to prepare us all for the ascension. On the other hand, the denser aspects of this old Earth reality now are serving as a far too limited containment field, which is increasingly feeling like a shoe that no longer fits. By learning to pass across the membrane into the NUMIS OM reality on the other side, we can experience our sense of deeper being with the denser aspects of our old Earth reality filtered out. Now I want to pause again for a moment. What he is saying here, what Thoth is referring to, is our ability to touch in to NUMIS OM, to that aspect of the new Earth, that overlapping field. Now, we will be able to do this much more as we are entirely within the Pyramidus radius. This is a developing platform here in the old Earth. Remember the magnetic levels. But we can still do it now. The platform is already in progress, and we are being drawn through our magnetic fields, our hypermagnetic fields, into this conductivity. So we don't need to wait for a completed platform in order to experience touch points, moments of connecting into the NUMIS OM aspect of the new Earth star. It has been my experience that each time this is accomplished, we leave the old Earth material that was filtered out behind, even though we return, because it is instantly transmuted as we pass across the membrane into NUMIS OM. How complete this transmutation process is will ultimately be dependent upon many different variables. The important thing is to realize that this is indeed occurring, and therefore repeated journeys into NUMIS OM result in a lightening of our denser load. Now, let's think about this for a moment. What he's speaking of here is micro units of releasing this load, of this karmic clearing. That term is really falls short of talking about it. Thoth is not real keen on the word karma and how we tend to think about it, but it is a true element. It's just not completely understood. In any case, we're going to call it the lessening of the karmic load here. And it's in micro units. Every time we touch in, we do the touch point into NUMIS OM, which is that first stage, that membrane stage into the new earth. But those touch points add up, and they trigger other awarenesses within us. In other words, it might be a little minute touch point you get, but you come back with it, and it's able to trigger some other awareness for you. And that adds to another awareness. So it's a domino effect in that sense. NUMIS OM is, after all, what we are calling the Eye of Metatron. The Isis Eye, or Areopax, is a key dynamic to help you access the Eye of Metatron. The Isis Eye will transport you into a harmonic space where the Eye of Metatron's full gaze falls upon you. This is not an externalized gaze from another being, as it may sound. Rather, this is an opening of your inner eye so that the metatronic full light aspects of your being are brought into more complete visual contact with your oritronic half-light being in such a way that your conscious mind now starts to shift its perspective to view all aspects of being from the metatronic full light context. Again, to add something here, remember the Areopax is the ascension dynamic within all portals, including the human portal. So that's why it's the key dynamic to access the Eye of Metatron. This may sound simple, but in a simulation, it is a very powerful challenge that unfolds over time with diligent applications of love, patience, persistence, and determination. You yourself are your only obstacle. There is nothing outside you that truly has the power to stop you once you have the goal in your sights and the determination to succeed. The reality of NUMIS OM is harmonically available to you 24/7. It is like a channel you tune into. The receiver is your heart. The frequency is love. That is the golden mean, or phi. The first thing we need to learn to love is everything that the sacred flow of life brings into our experience. Nothing can be excluded without truncating the process. Where there is resistance, love is constrained. Where there is embrace and acceptance, love is expanded. When love expands, the singular purpose of the universe and everything in it is being fulfilled. In other words, bring as much of your entire being present within the moment-to-moment flow of your everyday life as possible, and you will start to more frequently take the journey across the membrane into NUMIS OM in awareness and consciousness. Where awareness and consciousness go, form soon follows. Until form catches up, we can experience NUMIS OM in the now within us as an inner realization and state of being. Seraphana of the Merkaba of the Host, who is also Thoth's twin ray, has given me this affirmation to help this process along for you. I am standing on the lip of the sacred star grail. I peer through the radiant eye of Metatron to see myself more fully.
I see all beings within me. I see myself in all beings. I extend love and forgiveness to all that I now see. I feel the quickening heat of Metatron's flame upon my brow and in my heart. I breathe the rarefied prana of the new earth in and out through my heart. I feel the lightness of ascended being vibrating within every cell of my body. I now pass into NUMIS OM as a more rarefied and aware being. And so it is.
Welcome back. So I took notes, and so I just love some of the language that Thoth uses here, and the analogy you give of osmosis, which is a semi-permeable membrane, and referring to the NUMIS OM as an etheric fluidium, which I thought was a particularly apt phrase. And that we're in what you describe as this too limited containment field. It's like we're trying to wear a shoe that doesn't fit, right? And that as we're able to, triggered by the pyramid's radius matrix, beginning the process, that the denser aspects begin to get filtered out, right? As we develop this ability to touch in. It's almost as if our shoe size is gradually expanding to accommodate our growing awareness. Would this be?
It's gradually expanding to encompass our ever-expanding big feet. Yes. Yes, it is. That's correct. It's like, Thoth speaks about how we have a cap, and I've speaking about this before. I've spoken about this before, where there's a cap like on the head, like a baby's head, and as it comes together, it solidifies, and all of that. Well, there's a cap on the earth consciousness, and it's a natural one. Well, a natural from the standpoint of the Elohim and the divine beings that have brought us here and all that stuff. But what it does is that it allows us not to get ahead of ourselves, because it would just blow us away. And then when we're ready for the next level, that cap then rebirths itself. It expands and seals on that level. And it expands and it seals. As we go up, it's almost like decompression from the deeps of the sea. You have to do a little decompression as you go up to the top. And it's kind of like that. So I was mentioning that because it had to do with what you were saying. Now I completely forgot what that was.
Well, because you were talking about the analogy of a shoe that's too tight.
Right. That's exactly the same thing. So it's the same kind of thing, and we're having to grow into that field. But what helps us to do that is touch points into the quote unquote future, which is a negligible term, because we live in linear reality, but there are other realms that does not apply. But from our perspective, that's what it is. It's like allowing us to just touch into the future to help us reorganize that cap, so that we grow a little more and a little more till we're ready for blast off.
Right. Okay. So one question that came up for me: so often Thoth will give neologisms, newly created words, in order to accommodate a reality that cannot be described in our current language. So NUMIS OM
Yeah.
Particularly curious about the choice of the word Om, which is obviously
Yeah.
from the Hindu cosmology and Sanskrit, the vibrating motor that brings the universe itself into being, the sacred word.
Mhm.
And is there anything coming in it that you can share with us about why these words particularly were chosen by Thoth?
Well, because the Om is a creative sound, and that might, Om or Om, and this is a new creational realm. So it's the new Om. It's the expanding vibration of sound. Everything is attached to the sound of, according to Thoth, everything is sound. I mean, well, maybe I'm expanding it too much, but everything
Oh,
is,
I
it
think you're
has
right.
a sound.
Yeah.
It has a sound. It has a music, like the music of the spheres, and so Om is the next Om that embraces the new dimension of world system 2. Now NUMIS, I'm just going to ask right now because I don't know, but I'm getting it. I'm getting that it is the clean slate. It's like the tabla rasa. It's
Ah,
the NUMIS, the baseline of creational waters, or the creational font. That's the baseline of where it comes out of. It's the NUMIS. That's what I'm receiving right now, because I never asked before. But so it's the baseline, or the creational table, that then the divine sound arises from.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's very apt. That makes a lot of sense to me. So I also particularly loved the description of how repeated journeys can lighten our karmic load. It it reminds me of something that Paramahansa Yogananda describes meditation as being a preparation for the transition of death, in that you are taking daily rides in an astral balloon, you might say, to get the higher perspective on this reality. Like, oh, yes, I'm not this body, I am the soul, I am the soul. So that we are that much readier um, when we shed the body eventually, to do so in a way that leads to greater freedom and awareness of the divine. So I also noted that you said that Thoth does not like to use the word karma because it's so misunderstood,
Yeah.
but that this process of these touch points, and using the affirmation that you gave us, that Thoth gave us, these touch points can help lighten the karmic load in the sense of just shedding density. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's not that he doesn't want me to use that word, because he understands Thoth is all about integration, and he understands that karma is a word that people can identify with, they can understand to a degree, and integrate it. So just same thing with twin flames or twin rays. Those are not terms that he decides that he's saying that are not true. The dynamics are not true. They are true, but it's just that they're so misunderstood. Same thing with reincarnation. That's another term he says is very misunderstood. It doesn't mean it's false. It's just that there's so much more depth to understanding twin flames or rays, reincarnation, karma, a lot of these basic terms that he just wants to put a caveat in there with me. Yes, we're going to use that term because it is real, but it's not really enveloping the whole picture.
Right. Yeah. It has often seemed to me that, karma is such an easy word to toss around,
Mm-hmm.
that we use it glibly, it's like, oh, my karma's so bad. And, oh, don't stuff that parking meter, full of bottle caps because that's bad karma. It's simply in the terms of consequences, right? But
Michael, have you ever done that? Have you ever stuffed a parking meter?
this is going back to when there were pop tops in cans that were littering the roadsides across America, which takes it back to the Gerald Ford administration. Okay, so forget that analogy. It's all. And
Okay.
have I ever done that? Well, I slipped through the turnstile of the L train when I could squeeze through and get a free ride downtown and back when I was 11 years old.
Well, you see, this is an example of karma, because now you can't squeeze through anymore. So your extra body weight is your karma.
Oh, there you go. And I forged phony tickets to Santa's Village. No, I didn't do that. That's a line from a play. Anyway, okay. So we're talking about karma. I got a little off track there, but it's it's just actually so much more complex, beautifully complex a question. When things come our way, particularly like this that you said also, in terms of, and I think this was, I would love it actually if the full text of what you read to us, if you could send to me, at any rate, the text, and perhaps we can print a link, because
I can do that. I read that off, not my comments in between, but the text itself. Sure, and I'll put that.
Yeah, because there were a number of phrases that I thought were, particularly eloquent and memorable and poignant. And so, yeah, if you can do that, that would be great. That speaking of karma, that it's, so beautifully complex. We've talked about this before, about how the astral spine interacts with the zodiac. This is, at the moment of conception, the soul enters the, this fertilized egg, and then the astral karma locked up in the astral spine begins to interact with the genetic material in the fetus as it grows, such that is the blend of, as they say, nurture and nature, right? Of your environment, your parents, etc., heredity, and your soul dynamics. The karma, literally locked up in your astral spine, as it forms in the fetus, then through the course of your life interacts, these sort of inner zodiac of your spine interacts with the outer zodiac of the lawful unfoldment of of the stars and planets and their influence upon the earth and your life, and then as circumstances permit, the karma locked up in our spines interacting with the stars and the environment brings into our field those lessons which are just karmically locked up in the astral spine. That's my best short thumbnail sketch of what Yogananda writes so beautifully in the autobiography on the chapter on astrology, Outwitting the Stars, the chapter is called.
Now,
and so go ahead.
I'm sorry, I get ahead of people sometimes, because all of a sudden something comes in.
Let it come in. Interrupt me, please.
Well, it's the correlation with what Thoth has been saying of late about the quantum logic interactive program with the 90-10 technology of the quantum cubes that we're doing, and have placed 15 so far terminals with people all over the world. Well, it sounds big, let's say most in the United States and some other countries, and we're wanting to make it much bigger. We need a global community of these terminals. Anyway, he's saying about it that, we're not, when we do this broadcasting, streaming, not screaming, but streaming.
Everybody scream into your cubes now. We'll change the world.
Anyway, I don't know what's the matter with my mouth today. Anyway, so when we're doing this, we're not saying, well, we want to feed the hungry children over here. We want this political leader to go bye-bye. We want, whatever. We're not working on those levels. We're working on much higher levels, because it's Thoth explained it. When you work on the spine of the body, you rotate the axis, you get the spine correct, then all the organs can respond with vitality, balance. and good health. So he equated that to what we're doing with the streaming, in that we're not trying to cherry pick stuff, to work on. We're doing a streaming. We do have specific locations and certain things, but they're all of higher nature, and they're all, aligned to this column of the spine of the planet, and how to adjust that, because then things begin to correlate in the lower aspects of it. So when you were speaking about that, that's just perfect.
Yeah, and in the context of the NUMIS OM, right, and the touch points that we are capable of creating, accessing now, right, that there is the potential, as you describe it, to sort of lighten the karmic load a little bit of de-densification, if you will, and that each touch point that we experience, that raising of our vibration into, this fluidium, as he refers to it, triggers another touch point, which has its own hastening, quickening dynamic, which triggers another, Is it accurate to almost refer to this as a sort of ascension prep, ascension drill, just not even a drill, but an actual practice of the experience of, like, this cap expanding, reforming, expanding, reforming. Am I putting it too dramatically, or is that accurate?
Oh, it's quite accurate. Yes, indeed it is. And, everything we do right now in our world, and you could argue that maybe everything we've ever done, but most specifically in the last, I would say, 5 years, that we are doing right now is intrinsically woven into the whole NUMIS OM, or the whole, let's say, New Earth pattern. So we are literally weaving, knitting our new Earth as we go about our lives. And the division of worlds that Thoth spoke to me about in 1970s, or at least 1980, no later than 79, 80, somewhere in there. That's when he first mentioned it, that is. And I had no concept of, a new Earth or any of that stuff at that particular time, but it all came rather quickly afterward. Anyway, when he spoke to me about it then, he was talking about how dramatically in the future, and of course here we are, how dramatically consciousness would start to separate. In other words, in the older days, just not that long ago, consciousness was like, okay, this person has this level of consciousness, this person has this level of consciousness, his is really not too connected, and this person's really, very aware and connected, and they're all sort of occupying the same fluidium. They're all occupying the same kind of embryonic fluid, right? The two mismatched twins are in the same womb together, and they're sharing their air and the umbilical cord and the food and everything. Now what's happening with the division is those two consciousnesses are becoming rapidly not being able to share the same space. In other words, they're going to have to find new relativity. And the ones that are downtrodden and lost, they're not looking for anything. They don't know what they're doing. And that's just very sad. But it's accumulated over eons of time when they've had so many chances to change as incarnating souls, and they haven't done so. And there's not that many that are that bad off, but they're with us, and it's a sad thing. But they're not going to hell. They're just going to have to be recycled at some point into a world that can accommodate them and give them the lessons all over again. Not a pretty thought, but they're not being given up on. But those of us, as imperfect as we are, that are really striving for the light and really hold that, that desire and that feeling in our hearts, that energy is going to bring a new zone of reality before we ever get to the new Earth star. It has to happen that way, or it's like I'm being shown a scene. Okay, one of my little scenes here. I'm seeing this life raft. It's a pretty big life raft, okay? And there's a bumpy ocean, and there's a bunch of people in the life raft, you know, they're waiting, trying to hold on and wait, get to shore. And a group of them decide to become cannibals. And the other group is going, oh my God. and so, you know, the cannibals are tearing at them and everything. And it's like, so the other group has to say, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to swim and we're going to sail. And the others just take off in another kind of craft and just sail ahead. And the others are just they sink into the sea, and the sea consumes them to recycle them into a new reality for them that they can abide in, that can work for them. But us, those of us who are, you know, really wanting to be in that realm for preparation for the new earth, we're literally having to create that realm, that in-between realm. That's what the pyramidus radius is all about. I know we're talking about NUMIS OM, but pyramidus radius is really important in all of this. The pyramidus radius level says, we're not creating anything for you. You're creating it. But we're giving you a platform, a safe space. And it's not in a country, on an island, the Pacific. It's here in your being, because we're calling you. We've got a frequency that if you reach that particular frequency in your heart, mind, consciousness, and it doesn't have to be, you know, meditating all day to do it. It's just you're a good person, basically, you know, basically good person. You can connect to that frequency, and that will help bring you through. It's the life raft, you know, bring you through into that frequency zone. Then all of this other chaos and the cannibals you left behind, the zombies or whatever, you know, it's not going to interfere with you. The challenge is the in-between space. We are now. We haven't quite gotten hold of that rope yet. It's there, and we're just reaching for it. In the meanwhile, we've got some cannibals snapping at our behinds. And so we're in this undetermined space. And that's why we feel so vulnerable right now. But at the same time, it's a magical moment, because it impels us, not propels us, but impels us to take some action. You know, and I'm not talking about fighting off the cannibals. I'm talking about facing forward, not backward, and taking the action we need, whatever that may be, in different people, different tools, to accelerate ourselves into this new reality that we're all creating together, that pyramidus radius is allowing us to create. It's giving us that space. Now, when we get into that space more succinctly, and we're really there, then we can begin to receive the bounty of what the ultras and the inners, interterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, Elohim, and all that are providing for us to help us along. And at that point, then we start really connecting to NUMIS OM. We're not there yet, but we're having far greater experiences with it. You know, just these vaporous clouds of that experience are coming into our field. They'll reside, and then they'll come in again. Right now, we're just getting these little pinpricks. So you can see how these are levels and stages of bringing us along to get us there. Now, you know, when we physically die or leave the body, it's an easier process. We're just not here anymore. And, you know, we have our relatives in the beyond and angels and whatever, and they take us to a nice little comfortable zone where we learn things and we get ready for another lifetime here, which is the bad news. So, but, you know, the difference is that we're preparing to, as I said before, but it bears repeating, we're preparing to switch platforms. No longer will this be the platform we come back to. We are completely turning loose of this platform. We're taking the earth with us through the planetary genius, but we have a new platform. And so when we get to that new platform, we're going to find this experience of dying and being reborn, and dying and being reborn is not happening anymore. We are going through cycles. We are changing things, but it's so much better. It's like, you know, working on a typewriter one end and working on an iMac, because I just got a new one, on the other. You know, it's just like there's no comparison, because it's just so much easier and simpler, and you don't lose consciousness in between. You don't come back and go, now let's see, what am I here? You know, you go, oh yes, I'm going to pick up where I left off. This is here now. I have more understanding, so I'm going to move into this stage. You know, instead of having to figure it all out again. And it's not like some universal being said, boy, I'm going to just create this suit for you. You're going to have to sink or swim. That's not what happened. We did it to ourselves, to bring ourselves in this kind of reality zone that, you know, is mismatched with our singular soul purposes. It doesn't mean that it's all bad. Of course not. There's beauty here, but we're just out of sync. So what's going to happen is we're gradually having to be worked back into that synchronization. And when we get it, then we're ready for the ascension and to move into that beautiful passage into the new earth, the first stage of that, the NUMIS OM.
Wow. Well, you know, it's particularly interesting for me, okay, raised Catholic, but sort of, which you might call enlightened Catholic, because my mom and dad had, you know, books on yoga and reincarnation around the house. Yeah, we had to go to mass every Sunday, and, you know, catechism and sacraments and grammar school, Catholic grammar school, and all the rest of it. But I was kind of raised with the awareness of reincarnation and, you know, these concepts. And in studying the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda, of course, he, you know, was a pioneer of bringing these concepts more fully to the West. Kriya Yoga, the technique of working in the spine in order to accelerate one's spiritual evolution, to burn up the karma that's locked in the astral spine, to more quickly access, you know, states of divine awareness. So, you know, we have this conventional understanding of reincarnation, you know, and there's, you know, you die, there's a transitional place, you prepare, you come back down, and then suddenly you're in diapers, and it's nursery school and grammar school and pimples and adolescence and confusion and oh my God, right? And, oh yeah, you know, along about 23 or 24 years old, you start to remember, if you're lucky, just where the heck you were in your soul evolution last time, and try to stumble your way towards, you know, the lesson. So what you're describing sounds a lot nicer. And I guess it's one of those things that is difficult to quite reach when we're talking about changing platforms. You know, that, of course, the great teachers who were reaching out, you know, people like Vivekananda and Yogananda, obviously, and other enlightened souls during the 19th and 20th centuries, I mean, they couldn't exactly say, oh, by the way, at some point, some unguessed point, because we don't know the date, you'll be changing platforms, and reincarnation is going to be a whole different thing, because actually there'll be this permanence radius matrix and NUMIS OM, and there'll be, and this is confusing and beside the point.
Yeah.
Yet, you know, I ask about it now because I sense that, you know, for a lot of our audience, it's kind of a radical new understanding of the evolution of the soul. You know, that for those of us who are ready, who have asked for it, who have used our free will more or less well in the last 100 incarnations or so, you know, that we will inevitably make this move into a new platform where, rather than the angst and stress and amnesia of the soul in the reincarnational ascent, one hopes it's an ascent, that it's a much more seamless, you know, continuation of consciousness, and in a freer realm. This new platform is freer, more joyous, more divinely creative. Am I describing this at all? Is anything coming in for you to kind of expand? So when I rattle on like this, half the time I hope filth comes in for Maia real soon, because I'm rambling now.
Well, no, it is, Michael. But the only caveat, the thing I want to say about this is it's not perfect. In other words, we're still in a dual system, although, as Thoth has said, we're in a very broken dual system here. If we understood how beautiful duality could be, which it will be in the new earth, it's a whole different thing. You know, we're thinking, oh, duality, I just hate duality. But if you had it balanced, it would be pretty good, you know, but it's still duality. And it is another learning experience. Learning is involved. Challenges are involved, but there are more challenges of understanding things and trying to grasp them, and maybe having to go into some kind of a state of withdrawal for a while, and just be in that state, or that cocoon of light, to try to understand or get in touch with what's you need to turn loose of from the past reality. There'll be turning loose stages that are involved, not as much as there would have been if we didn't have the pyramid's radius involved first. Then it would have been a big deal. But there are things going on, so there are challenges involved, and especially in the NUMIS OM stage, which could last a long, long time. So I don't want to make it out like, oh, everything is just perfect. It's not. But perfection is where you find it. In other words, is there really anything that's ultimately the perfection other than what we call God, the gnosis of divine being? That you would say would be. But as we progress into our envelope of expansion and contraction, we must move through these zones with a certain effulgence of like a little jellyfish, going like this. And every time we contract, that's what you would call the challenges. And every time we expand, that's, oh, the happiness, And so, but the difference is here, when we contract, we go, ouch, it hurts. and in the world system too, your contraction is more like it's not even a birth pain, because that's going to hurt too. It's more of a feeling of bringing things in and being aware that you have to be still and be contracted in the motion of developing a new understanding, and then you expand again. And that's what it's trying to do for us here. It's a natural event. It's a natural dynamic to contract and expand. It's just that because our skeletal structure is so out of whack, contraction is extremely painful, but it's not meant to be that way. Again, we need to get into the proper balanced spinal flow of the new earth, and then we'll find a whole nother process involved. Still challenging, still requires your attention. You don't just sit on a cloud and eat grapefruit. Not grapefruit. That was the wrong fruit.
Angels, they play the harps in here. Hand me that grapefruit. I gotta visit.
I think that was a Thothic joke, must have been. I'm going to blame it on him. Anyway. Oh, God, now I'm
gonna make you remember the heavenly grapefruit from now on.
Okay, I'm going to be serious now. So anyway, let's call it grapes. Okay, not grapefruit, but the Roman grapes.
Nectar, divine.
Nectar of gods, yes. So it's not just all about just sitting around and drinking the nectar of the gods. You have to apply yourself in the new earth, in the world system too, and apply yourself in ways that are going to be unfamiliar to you if you're holding on to some extent with some of the old world dust. We're not going to get rid of all of it by the time we move through, because we got quite a dusting. So in that process, because like one time Thoth said to me, well, because I was sort of inquiring, in the new earth, I said, will there be any children? Will we give birth to children? I have children like manifest out of our forehead like Zeus or something. And he said, no, but there will be some children. And I said, well, how does that work? And he said, because some souls who are coming into the new earth need that. They need to be children for a while. They need to experience being children. And some of and they're people that need to experience being parents some more, or maybe being parents, somehow there needs to be that. And it'll be different. It won't be like families and little white picket fences, but there will be that energy between one soul being an adult and one soul being a child, and they're somehow connecting and helping the children. But the children in the new earth will be souls not deficient of anything, but just needing to experience that fresh innocence in a way that they understand it, they identify with it. We all, unless we have cold stone hearts, love children, and we remember being innocent and being loved by mommy and daddy and all of these feelings. So some of that is going to linger in NUMIS OM only. So you might see a few children here and there, not a lot, but some. And he also said, there's food You don't need to eat. The body is processing light in a different way. But when they first come in, most souls are going to want some food. He said they're going to want something, something delicious like chocolate or something. Anyway, whatever they can manifest that they feel good about. So he's saying, you're going through stages of turning loose things, and you're saying, oh, this is a beautiful new world. What makes me feel happy? Oh, I know, being a little child. Oh, chocolate. Oh, rainbows. Oh, I love rainbows. Just getting into that feeling of all of that. And once you've digested that, then you really start experiencing more what the new earth really is all about. And it does have rainbows, but from a different perspective, not from the way they're created here.
Right. So what you're describing sounds so similar to a lot of descriptions of what is referred to as the astral realm. When we have dropped these bodies,
Yes,
we are in, the realm of light and energy. We've dropped the denser physical manifestation of the body, and there is an astral universe of light and energy, which is the blueprint that at denser levels of vibration, creates the physical. And the descriptions of the astral that I'm familiar with are very similar, actually, to what you're describing now.
Jack Sothis had mentioned that, and he said on the surface of it, so to speak, there's not that much difference initially between just transitioning and having had a good enough life that you're not lost, you're being helped with your family and your loved ones, and maybe you see Yeshua and Buddha and whatever. It's very similar, very similar. But the difference is, the primary difference, and it's a big one, is that you're not in a holding stage where you have to come back here, or you're just up there, trying to help people down here. You are in a process of, you've taken your platform with you. You're in a new platform, so you don't have to keep coming back and digging into the dirt again. You're in a new realm, and as you progress in that realm, all of these wishful things like, oh, I want children, or I want food or whatever, that's all going to dissipate. And then you really start experiencing the new earth. And I don't think that is going to take so long, but we're talking about time. It's really difficult because we're not going to have the kind of linear time that we have here. And it's beyond my comprehension, so I can't even discuss it. But that's the main difference, Michael, is that, we're not just hanging out for a while, getting the good life, refreshing, taking a nice shower, and then we got to go back in the mud. It's like, no, this time we're just going on and on and on and on.
Okay. So, yeah, this is, it's easy to think of 3D, this planet, these lessons in this realm as being, the physical cosmos. Well, no, as you say, this is duality as experienced, in what is probably still a lower yuga, ascending age, of a planet that, if you've taken a survey of all the planets just in our galaxy, or in other galaxies in this vast universe, there are much higher realms where souls, who are at a much higher level of evolution, are experiencing duality at this much higher level that you are describing. That reminds me of, again, I'll bring in stories from Yogananda, because that's my spiritual path, where there was a woman who came to hear him speak, and afterwards there was a receiving line, and she said, well, but what about hell, Swami? What about hell? I mean, I'm not sure I believe in the existence of this place, and he just leaned forward and he said, where do you think you are?
Exactly.
Right? Just into, comparing planet Earth, and it's beautiful, and we love her, and it's Gaia, who is, our collective soul mother, throbbing at the heart of the inner Earth realm. Within, all that beauty, which is a reflection of the cosmic mother, reflection of the higher reality, and, there are realms beyond realms beyond realms of higher beauty and joy and love within duality. And that's what comes in for me that you're describing. Yes?
Yes, yes, very much so. And you know, it's important to, Thoth has always said, it's important to differentiate between Earth and Gaia, Earth Gaia, and the world. The world is the hell, or it has a lot of hell in it. It has good stuff too, but you know, that's where we find the mud. That's where, if it's just Gaia, just Earth and her, just Gaia and her centric Earth around her, that's heaven. That's heaven right there. All you have to do is go out and look at some of the beauty. Well, I do, of these mountains out here, or if you're any place you are that there's nature, you're in heaven. But when you add to it the conglomeration of the world that we have, that is our consensual reality that we've pasted and plastered all over it, then that's where we find the hell part. So we always need to keep those two separate to understand who we really want to relate with. We don't want to just trash where we are. We just say, no, I accept that there is a lot of work to be done in the world, but I also know that my Mother Earth is a beautiful creation of God, of the divine, of source, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, another thing that I really wanted to celebrate really about what was shared with us here is, you know, the affirmation at the end. And just some of the beautiful expressions that with love and patience and persistence and determination, nothing can stop us. That, and particularly, you know, that beautiful opening phrase of the affirmation you gave, that I am standing on the lip of the sacred star Grail. You know, that, and I encourage everybody to listen to the video again, and to take the words of that affirmation within, and perhaps if it resonates for you, to make it part of your daily practice in a meditative way, to begin to do these touch points, you know.
Of course, I'll have the insert video that's only 12 minutes long in the you know, the comments that link to it, so you don't have, you know, you can just go right to that if you want to watch it over and over again. It doesn't take that long.
Yeah, so it's you know, what comes in for me as I look at the possible integration of all the different elements that have been coming into play over the last couple of years, you know, particularly in our work here in Chrystine, and your work as it's begun to become distilled, as you've described it. Everything that you've worked on for decades is now coming together, you know, in the Quantum Cube Logica Interactive. And that for me, you know, as a devotional musician, as a writer, it feels as if there can be a way of sharing this powerful transformational dynamic, these amazing sacred science tools, in such a way that can be practiced in celebration, at the same time sharing of information, like within a learning environment that is at the same time devotional and celebratory. And now let us practice together. Enormously powerful sacred tool that we've been given, you know, to use the quantum cube, to use the Holy Grail Vortex prayer and protocol, for example, which is this wonderfully aware, tuned in, peaceful, powerful tool of raising our own frequency and vibration and that of the whole planet, in such a way that, hard as it is for me to admit it, given how much time I devoted to activism, is really more powerful than any political or civic act that we might take, than any engagement, you know, to counter the dark forces, and we're going to take them on. And I mean, I spent 5 years of my life, you know, attempting to create a new International Court of Human Rights in order to there to be consequences for the bad guys, and that's still part of it, and that's somebody else's fight right now, not mine. And so I'm particularly encouraged to envision a beautiful, celebratory, artistic, musical, sacred, I don't know, I'm sort of struggling for words here. It's almost like, I have a a Facebook group, a page called the Jai Gaia Sacred Activism Tour. Jai meaning being Sanskrit, Bengali, or Hindi for victory, right? Victory to the Divine Mother, Jai Ma, Jai Gaia, victory to Gaia, to that heaven, as you say, of the real Mother Earth. And so what's coming in for me is wanting to, obviously we can create it virtually. You're already doing it, but there's something so powerful about actually gathering together, about actually meeting people, about, during the lockdown that was shut down, it was prevented, that powerful transformative dynamic, which I experienced just a couple of weeks ago in Los Angeles when I gave a couple of kirtans, beautiful, wonderfully transformative. We were all floating on our way out. So it is my intention to see how we can, bring in, for those who choose it, and perhaps we can coordinate with you and coordinate with, the other people in the Quantum Cube project.
Mhm.
In some of these moments. Anyway, that's for more exploration, but I just wanted to mention it. Your cat here. Come on.
Oh, Moo is my former pussycat is with
Here we
my
go.
and he's sweet. I miss you, Moo boy.
There he is, my
He's
buddy.
happy where he is. Yeah.
I'm cat sitting. I'm moose sitting for a couple of weeks here, and he's on his way back to his mama.
Yeah, I gave him to our friend Michaela, and he's now the only cat, and he just did not like not being the only cat. So he's happier now, and my other cats are happier now, but I do miss him.
Right. I think it's the sound of your voice as we've been doing this program that he's been like hovering around the chair as we've been talking, and gently he'll swat me. He'll go, how he does that? He goes, hey. Anyway, so now he's happy he's in my lap and purring because he gets to hear your voice again, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it feels like we've kind of reached a completion point. Does anything else come in for you?
No, I don't think so. Of course, I would like to give everybody a little nudge to consider having a session with me. It helps me keep going here because I really don't charge for anything else right now except sessions and artwork. And I think that it's quite an adventure right now to have as a session because things are changing in an interesting way. I mean, I've been doing sessions, not like lots of sessions. I've never wanted to pace it that way. That's not my main thing. My main thing is global work in science. But the sessions I've done, I started when I was 17, so it's been going a long time. And I've noticed in the last, just since I started the Quantum Cube Logica, actually, so it's been like a year and a half, the sessions have changed, not dramatically, but definitely become more dimensional. It's not me that's become more dimensional. It's the atmosphere of the work that is being propelled through Thoth that is, I'm within that envelope. And I just noticed that there's just this expansion there, and people that are having sessions with me, I think, feel something about it. So anyway, I think it would be something that you might want to consider because it's part of the whole picture for me on this planet to give that.
Let me heartily encourage everyone to consider having a session with Maia as a way of moving into a clearer understanding of what your unique role and contribution lessons might be at this particular moment. And so there'll be a very brief little a clip at the end of our program here with the you can follow the link and the to Maia's website to schedule a session. So, and of course, share, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And thank you for being with us at Blue Star Rising. And we will see you next time. God bless us, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.